Okay, there you go.
I wish I was beside you.
Alright, so this would be Friday, January 17th, and this will be my advanced class. We'll jump straight into our bell work called Greek to Me, and we're going to go through and put them into different columns to give you guys a quick background on Greek mythology, because apparently you're going to need it, because we're going to have lots and lots of issues. So put it there, so that you guys Greek mythology. To give you guys a quick background, you can keep working while I'm talking. That was my thinking, so hopefully you can multitask. We're going to be doing Greek mythology for the next 5 weeks or so. For some of you, you're going to really get into the Greek mythology thing to a scary level, which is fine. The problem is, for some of you, it's going to be to a level of your enjoyment of school that you've not experienced in a long time, and it's going to make your learning molecules pop all crazy in your brain. And when you get all excited about learning, you're going to start wanting to talk out loud. And we all know how well that works in my class. So I'm giving you the heads up now. I'll try to do my best to help you work through this together without you losing too many points every time that things come into your head. Especially because I won't be calling on you a lot during this unit, because you're going to want to raise your hand, because the things you're going to talk about are random babbly things, and almost always my answer is going to be, have we talked about that yet? And you're going to go, but I want to know now. And my answer is, I don't care. So to help you out with that, we'll get to it. We just have 5 weeks of information, and you want to know it all on day 1, so have faith. Plus, because of the whole, there's different versions of these stories as they got passed down. And why do we have different versions of these stories?
Because they were passed down
Oral tradition. That means that the version I'm giving you might be different than the version you know. But my version's right. No, your version's different. It's okay. So keep that in mind. Also, that's the reason why there's different spellings. Some of you guys are figuring out already, things are spelled differently up here than they are on your handout, than they are on the posters. That's because of that oral tradition. Because they were illiterate, they just went off of how things sounded. There's different spellings for Kronos and Hephaestus. That doesn't make any of them wrong. It just means that there's different versions. Same person, different spellings. So don't let that freak you out too much. So what you're going to have to get used to here coming up is a whole lot of you raising your hand and me not calling on you. If you really have a question, write it down or wait till the end of class, because it's not going to happen. Or, if it's not that you guys are asking about those, you're going to make the connections. You're like, Mr. Brovicast, I saw a movie yesterday, and it had the story about Prometheus. Is that the same thing as the spaceship? Yes, they are. We'll get to all that. I thought Pandora was a music act. Is there a reason? There is. We'll get to that. So it's okay. I'm proud of you for making the connections and doing the learning thing, but you have to realize your learning is going to slow me down. So the easiest way to fix that is ignore you. So don't take it personally. I'm just going to be ignoring you as we move forward from here. Yay! So alright, to go through here, we're going to go through and see how you guys did. If you put something in the wrong spot, it's okay. What I'm going to have you do is just draw an arrow to where it's supposed to go. So if you put chaos under people and it's supposed to be in places, you don't have to erase it. Just circle it, draw an arrow to where it's supposed to be. I'm okay. Even though it's cheating and learning, we're going to call that learning. And that means you're paying attention and figuring things out. Making sure that you have them in the correct columns will make your life easier later on. The handout that you have will make your life much easier. Put your name on it. I've had multiple kids already leave them in my room without their name on them, which means they're going to have to buy new ones. Come the stories and stuff next week, being able to refer to that family tree chart will make you much happier. You won't have to cry nearly as much. Also, if you guys are familiar with soap operas, TV shows, Greek mythology was the first soap opera, which is why kids usually get really into it, because it's all about infighting, backstabbing, killing your parents, killing your brothers, being friendly with people, and stuff like that, where there's all these different stories that are going to go into it that become very, very entertaining. So, let's begin. With our first one, chaos. We'll get into our first stories today. I'm going to have you guys raise your hands, like as I do each column, and see which one you think it goes in. So for chaos, raise your hand if you say gods. How about places, things, other stuff? Chaos goes in both gods and other stuff, but if you have it in places or things, that's also fine. You can have it in any of the 4. Mr. Brovey, I can't have possible. Well, let me give you a quick explanation. here's how the whole Greek mythology thing works out. With Greek mythology, it's an explanation thing. This is how they explain how the world came into being. All of these gods are going to be explaining different parts of life and the world. The Greeks didn't think that we started off with a planet or stars or space. We started off with chaos. Chaos was a swirling ball of nothingness. Swirling ball, nothing. Now, at some point, your brain is going to go, Mr. Brovicast, did you say swirling ball of nothingness? And I go, yes. You go, how can it be a ball and nothing and swirl? I know. With Greek mythology, the sooner you try not to think about it, the happier your brain will be. Next week, we're going to get to a story where one of the gods kills the sky by stabbing the sky, and the sky dies. It's okay, because we replace the sky with another god. You're like, I don't think that's possible. It's not. But just accept it and roll, things will be much better. So that we have chaos, swirling ball of nothing. If it's easier for you to imagine, I'm going to refer to it as a ball of pudding. Because for some of you, like, oh, pudding. So imagine pudding just swirling out. It's not swirling in space, because space doesn't exist. It's just pudding going, pudding, 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 pudding. And eventually the pudding gets bored, because how long can you be pudding? And eventually the pudding goes and splits to form the first two gods, Uranus and Gaia. And then from there it then goes on to create, well, Uranus and Gaia go on to create all of the plants and animals and trees and gods. So because of that, chaos creates the first gods, who then go on to create all the other places and things and other stuff. So that's why chaos is kind of responsible for all that. If at any time your brain goes, oh, Mr. Brovicast, my brain, it's okay. Just roll with it, and we'll try to help you as we go through. Chronos. Have you guys raise your hands for Chronos going in gods, places, things, other stuff? Here is where the posters and your handout come in handy. Chronos is on there. He is a god. Yes. Now, you can also see over here above Yorn, this would be Chronos up there. It looks like he's wearing a cheerleading skirt while trying to golf with little people. That would be Chronos. He's also on your family tree chart. You'll see Chronos was there because he was the father of a whole bunch of them. He's also over here, and you'll see Chronos. Oh, Mr. Brovicast, it's spelled differently up there than it is over there than it is over. It's okay. There's multiple spellings of Chronos. Next week we'll get to a story where his name is spelled with a K. You're like, oh, mine, blow. It's okay. All the same person. Chronos is one of our first fun stories that we'll get to, because he's the one that attempts to kill his father, as you do when you're bored, and then decides to make up for it by then trying to get rid of his children, as you do on the weekends. And so Chronos will be one of our first fun stories that we'll get a chance to get to. Me still not calling my name?
Okay, that's fine.
Me too. Hades! How do you guys go with gods, places, things, other stuff? Hades actually goes in two spots. Nice one. Gods and places. I only could put it in one, but it goes in gods and places. Mr. Brovicast, how that makes sense? Let me explain. Many of you guys who are familiar, Hades is one of the big ones that you're familiar with because of the whole Percy Jackson and things like that. Hades was not evil. When I know it pops up a lot, he was not like a Satan figure going around going, wah-ha-ha, trying to hunt people down. Hades was grumpy and depressed. He was the kid that wore all black with black fingernails, you know, played bass guitar, stuff like that, wrote poetry, and didn't talk to other people. His thing was, don't talk to me. If you talk to me, I'm going to be grumpy. But people kept talking to him. How are you? How are you? How are you? Rah! And he'd unleash fury upon them. Over here above Yorn is a picture of Hades looking all dark. He liked to wear hoodies. It was his issue. And so that was Hades. Now with that, he, along with his brothers, got kingdoms that they got to name. And so he got to name his own kingdom. He wasn't real creative, and people kept bugging him. They're like, what are you going to call this place? He's like, Hades. I'm like, well, that's your name. What are you going to call it? Hades. He's like, what are you going to Hades? They're like, we're just going to call this place Hades. So they called the place where he lived Hades. But there was a problem with that, which we'll get to in a second. So Hades lived in Hades. Underworld. If you guys say gods, places, things, other stuff, that's fairly anonymous, is places. Now, Underworld is the same place as Hades. It's where he lived. But the problem was how the Greek, you guys ever heard of Bloody Mary? Bloody Mary, you go into the bathroom, turn off the lights at night, and you go, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, turn around 3 times, and she jumps out of the mirror, like, stabs you to death. It has to be like 4 times. And so that would be, the Greeks believed Hades worked the same way. If you said Hades' name out loud, that he would then show up. So if all of a sudden George dies in class, like, oh no, George is dead. Like, well, where's he going to go? He's going down to Hades. Like, oh no, George is going to Hades. Not the person, but the place. Hades, like, someone said my name. And he would then show up, like, you said my name. You're like, no, I meant he's going down to your place. But then Hades, being all grumpy, was like, well, then you're coming back with me. And he'd drag you back down to his world. If you went to his world, that would make you dead, which makes most people kind of grumpy. So because of that, no one would say Hades' name out loud. You usually call him by a nickname, the Dark One, or the Rich One, or something like that. And so, learning! And so you would call him by one nickname, something like that. But you also couldn't say the place where he lived. And he lived in Hades. So they had to come up with a nickname for it. Well, where was Hades located? Yeah, they weren't real creative. They're like, what are we going to call this place? It's under the world. They're like, done. Right? Okay. And so it just became called the Underworld because it was under the world. Yeah, I know me not calling on you is just going to drive you nuts.
No, please, please.
Titans.
No.
The next one. Raise your hand for gods, places, things, other stuff. Gods. Titans are the same things as gods. It's like saying human and people. They're the same thing. All of these pictures you see around the room, those are all Titans. No, Mr. Brovicast, those are Olympians. You're right. That's like saying, I'm not a human, I'm a student. It's the same thing. It's just a type of human. So gods and Olympians, Titans. Olympians was just a Titan that had a throne, and we'll talk about that. But gods and Titans were the same. They were just really tall, big people that could squash you and happen to live forever. So all of those ones are going to be the exact same. Vulcanize. And you guys go with gods, places,
Oh, I'm just raising my hand.
things, other stuff. Vulcanize, other stuff. It's a word that just comes from Greek mythology. It actually comes from Hephaestus. You know, on your little sheet, you'll see that his Roman name is Vulcan. And so vulcanize just means to melt something to make it stronger. Like with rubber, it's a processing thing.
Like volcano.
Anytime you would get the impurities out of something, you'll melt it down. It means to vulcanize something. So it's just a word from Greek mythology. Pandora. You guys go gods, places, things, other stuff. Pandora, God. Now given, I know I'm like, Mr. Brovicast, that's also a music app. You're right. We're going to talk about why. Mr. Brovicast, I saw a movie with big giant cat people that were all blue on it. That planet was called Pandora. You're right. All of these things have a reason why they're called that. But in Greek mythology, Pandora was a god. But in Greek mythology, Pandora meant something. Pan means many. Dora means gifts. Her name meant many gifted, and that's how she came to be. In the movie, what was the movie the big blue cat people was? Avatar. They went to this planet, and it had full of riches and all these things they wanted to take from it. It was like it was full of gifts, so they called this planet Pandora, many gifts. The music app, you go on there, and you get all these different music things to come to you. So it's like you're getting gifts of music from all these Pandora. So that's why you get these connections to that Greek mythology. Pandora means many gifts. And actually, we'll probably stop there. You know, when we come back, that puts me a little bit ahead of our other class, and so I was able to go a little bit faster with you guys. So now, the things that have popped into your head, you'll actually get a chance to ask. You got lucky, Stephanie.
Yes, okay, so you know how...
But go faster, I cut you off.
Okay, you know how Hades, people call Hades like the Dark One and stuff? That's like calling Voldemort and Harry Potter. You must not be
This
there.
actually was the first class I didn't mention that in. You're right, because all my other classes I brought that up and they just blinked at me. I'm like, Harry Potter, like, what am I eating, losers? So yes, exactly. That was from, when she did that, that was from Greek mythology. When she did the whole Voldemort not saying his name, that's from Greek mythology and Hades. George!
I'm Greek, and in my church, instead of saying
Two things. Which is interesting, because when we get into it, we're going to find there's actually a difference between hell and Hades. We'll talk about that difference. Bono.
Okay, for our, if we have a test over this stuff and we spell
And we do.
When?
Okay.
Spelling does not count.
So if we spell Cronus with a K, we're not gonna get it
That's
wrong.
fine. Now, if you spell Hera, Z-E-U-S, we're going to have issues. But
With an H.
LOL.
you'll figure it out. Rebels.
Isn't Poseidon like from Ariel and he was Ariel's god?
No, that was actually Triton, who is Poseidon's son.
Whoa, it
On-
got
We'll
real.
get to that.
So Ariel was from Greek mythology.
No, Ariel's from another story altogether, but they kind of pulled from Greek mythology and picked a random person to put in there.
Isn't Tinkerbell
Much like
movie?
Percy Jackson's not really Greek mythology, he just sort of flipped through the book and pulled out names. But it's close.
She's one of the mermaids.
And there will I know. Learning! See you guys later.